Continuing on our lecture, formal documentation, Python docstrings. Okay, this is a bit subtle. Do pay attention. Documentation informs another programmer how to properly use your classes and functions and serves as a formal specification of promised behavior that must be internally implemented. The expected outward behavior of a class or a function should be well defined and documented before the actual implementation is written. Okay. So what does all this mean? Say suppose I have written a code. Let's go back to racquetball game. So we have this code here and some other programmer wants to understand this. See, if I run this, what happens is I have here a shell interacting with the user. Now user may not be a programmer, okay? So user uses whatever they want to, however they want to, and the user's job is done. But what if a programmer is curious how this is? Now programmer will have to go inside the code and understand every single function. If I have defined class, that is also a nice way, all right? But you want some documentation. Suppose I did not have these comments, then the other programmer does not know what I was planning to do here. So this documentation is very important, and this may seem silly or unimportant, but notice a lot of programmers who work in top-notch companies, they spend a great deal of time writing documentation because all of this is typically done in teamwork. Okay, you don't do anything by yourself usually, so you need to be able to document. Okay, so the expected outward behavior of a class or a function should be well defined and documented before the actual implementation is written. So the documentation has to come before the actual implementation. Okay. The symbol hash is used for directly embedding comments within source code. This style of comment is ignored by the interpreter yet visible to a programmer, making it very valuable for someone who reads a piece of code. So you know these are comments because they follow the hash symbol. Hash is ignored by the compiler, but you or I as a reader knows what's going on in this function, what's going on in this function, and so on. All right. Now, all this you can read if you get inside the code. What if you don't want to go inside the code? Then Python supports another style of documentation using well-placed strings known as docstrings. So docstrings are to be used when say the file is so long that you as a programmer, you don't want to go through the entire file to figure out what's going on. You want to be outside and be able to detect. So here is something you can do. Now that I have compiled this program, this shell knows I'm looking at this code, okay? So help, say game over, right? What does that function do? Help game over. It doesn't tell me anything. It is telling me game over is in this particular module and it's just a function. It doesn't tell me anything. In other words, this documentation is not visible from outside. All right. So how do I do this? So what I'll do is use triple quotes. Okay. I had 2 lines of comments. You see, now that became green. So earlier I had a hash before little a and I had a hash before capital R. Now I have placed them both within triple quotes. You can use triple single quotes or triple double quotes. But whichever you use here, you must match here for those to be closed. Okay, so this is now a docstring. Let me save it and run it. Okay, I don't want to um, I don't want to run my code. I just want to see how game over looks like from outside. So I have commented it so that I don't have to go through the rigmarole. All right. So anyhow, let's run it. Okay, it ran. I don't have to play the game, but I know I have a code here, and I know there is a function called game over. So let me look at help game over. You see? So let's keep this here. That is the game over function, and I'm asking, after compiling it, I'm asking help game over. You see, now it tells me the comment here. Okay, previously it did not tell me. Now it's able to tell me because now it is a docstring. Okay, this is very important. And for example, you have a large module called math. You can actually look at all of math, help math. It's text of 215 lines. That's just help, okay, not the code. So let me click on it. Now it's telling me all sorts of things that's going on. Okay, so now suppose I want to just understand. I have imported math already. So let me understand sqrt. It's a function living in my math module. So I'm saying help square root. Oh, I'm sorry. Help math dot square root. Okay. So now it's able to tell me square root of x. It returns the square root of x. Help math dot sine is telling me it is a built-in sine function in module math and so on. So you see, all of these are actually doc strings. Sine, that's a doc string. Okay, and square root, there, that's a doc string. That's precisely what I'm getting here using help. Okay, so doc strings are very valuable when you write large codes and you want others to be able to understand what individual functions do in your large code. Okay, so these strings are visible within the source code, and they are also used to generate documentation seen in the Python interpreter through the use of help command, and to generate documentation on web pages using a corresponding utility pydoc. Okay, let's just worry about help because we are using a shell here. Okay, now a doc string is technically a string literal, that is, it's a string thing, one thing, okay, literal, that occurs as the very first element within the body of a class or function. So whenever you define a whenever you define a class, before you code the body, you have to mention the doc string. That's typically how it's done. Triple quote delimiters, okay, are used since these allow for multi-line. So that's very important too. Look at this. I could write 2 lines within these triple quotes, you see. Whereas if I have several lines, I have to use hash 3 times. Okay, so multi-lines strings can be enclosed in triple quotes. Okay, if further explanation is warranted, such as purpose or the type of parameters and return value, that information should be provided. So as we go along, when you start defining classes, you will see everything, definition of a class, definition of a method. You must have a doc string. Okay, if you see the example of fraction class, you will find that. also. Okay, so I'll stop my video here and I'll continue soon.